So hopefully you realize from the first section that the oldest life on Earth is prokaryotic. It is not like you or I in that it lacks uh, membrane-bound organelles. So some of this is hopefully a little bit of a review, but Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, according to our best estimates from looking at the geology of Earth and studying meteorites and doing really, really cool science like that. But life is about 3.5 billion years old. So almost the entire time that Earth has existed, or most of the time Earth has existed at least, life has existed on it as well. And initially, the Earth was referred to as anoxic, meaning it completely lacked oxygen. And so when we were talking about metabolism earlier in the semester, those metabolic pathways required oxygen to be present. And so the earliest forms of life on Earth were what's called anaerobic, or they underwent metabolism without actually needing to use oxygen. Then cyanobacteria evolved, and you can see some cyanobacteria here from Yellowstone. And what cyanobacteria did is they evolved the process of photosynthesis that we all know and love. They were able to take carbon from the atmosphere and use that to create organic carbon, which really it helped oxygenate the atmosphere and helped set into place the evolutionary processes that have given us the diversity that we have today. Certainly evolution was taking place before this, but this really started things going. So, how is it that we know that Earth is billions of years old? Well, we have fossil evidence to suggest that. So bacteria themselves don't actually fossilize, but the metabolites or things that they create do wind up getting put down into stone, and you can actually see fossil evidence of the bacteria that actually existed there. And so on the left, you have a microbial mat growing over one of these hydrothermal vents in the Pacific Ocean. So there's sort of lava near the surface, and it's causing hot water to be ejected into the ocean, and that's where much of early life evolved. Because, again, the atmosphere, there was no oxygen there, so radiation was just able to come through and destroy basically anything that was on the surface. Photosynthesis hadn't really evolved yet, and so they needed a separate source of energy. And so the source of energy that they used was very often geothermal energy, or these hydrothermal vents. And so this is actually taking place currently. There are still organisms that live near these vents. And then on the right side is a stromatolite, or this is the fossil evidence that suggests that life is in fact about 3.5 billion years old, because we're able to look at these rocks that we know how old they are and find evidence of bacteria there. And so sort of skipping forward a bit, that was just a tiny bit about how life sort of came to be. And by the way, evolution does not seek to provide an explanation for the origins of life, only for the diversity of life that currently exists. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. This slide is just showing you that generally, most prokaryotes have three shapes. They can be bacillus, or rod-shaped, which is this middle one here, sort of shaped like rods. They can be cosi, or spherical like this, or they can be spirillous or spiral shaped. I'm sorry, spirilla or spiral shaped. And again, this is just where you're going to see most bacteria. It's kind of like saying most humans are between 4'8" and 6'8". That's where you're going to find a vast majority. This is where you're going to find a vast majority of bacteria. Certainly not always the case, though, but for our purposes, this is it. I may ask you to identify some of these shapes. And you'll often see these in bacterial names. So you'll see something like Streptococcus, and Streptococcus is going to be like a round bacteria. So this is the generalized features of a bacterium. You should probably already know these from before. There's a section in the reading guide where I have you label this, but these are, again, the generalized features of a bacteria: the flagella, the flagellum for moving around, the pili for exchanging those plasmids that we had talked about, or for anchoring the bacteria, the capsule to provide extra protection to the bacteria, the cell wall, the cell membrane. They have ribosomes. They have the chromosomal DNA that doesn't really hang out in the nucleus, but spends most of its time in the nucleoid. And so somebody had asked me about sort of how antibiotics work and why they won't work on a virus. And so this is one of the reasons. So gram-positive bacteria have a peptidoglycan cell wall. Gram-negative bacteria do as well, but it's much thinner. But certain antibiotics work on this peptidoglycan cell wall, this PTG cell wall. And so some forms of antibiotics are actually going to go about attacking this structure here. And so if you have been able to identify that you are dealing with a gram-positive bacteria that has infected your body, then you can have an antibiotic that's going to attack that cell wall and actually be able to kill those bacteria. If you have a gram-negative bacteria, you have to figure out how to generally how to attack the plasma membrane, and that's how most antibiotics are actually going to work. Is they're going to attack specific structures that are in the cell wall or in the plasma membrane of the bacteria that aren't in the cells within your body. So we also have a really bad problem. And that is that our antibiotics are becoming less and less useful because bacteria are evolving to become resistant to them. And the basic idea that's happening here is that you are attacking these bacteria in a specific way, and you're killing all the bacteria except for the ones that don't have as much of that weakness. And so if you kill every single bacteria that can be killed off, by attacking a particular component of, say, their cell membrane, and only the ones that aren't susceptible to that survive, those are the only ones that are going to pass on their genetics to the next generation. And so as big of a boon, as magnificent and life-saving as antibiotics have been in the 21st century and the 20th century, the fact that we're killing off everything except for the ones that aren't susceptible to that is driving the evolution of these pathogenic bacteria. And again, our antibiotics are becoming less and less useful. So here is penicillin-resistant staphylococcus. So again, it's coccus or cocci, so you can see that these are circular. The shape is described in the bacterial name. But methicillin is a type of antibiotic, and these particular bacteria will not be killed by them, or will basically have a very reduced reaction to the methicillin. And this is called MRSA. You get this very often in hospitals, and it is a very bad thing to get. You have to get really specialized antibiotics in order to take care of things like this, again, because of that process of evolution. So we've had several, outbreaks of a bacteria that are very harmful to people. So some local sprouts over here caused an E. coli outbreak that made a bunch of people sick. I don't want you to think, by the way, that all bacteria are harmful. Certainly inside of your body there are many, many, many hundreds of millions of bacteria that live inside you and on your body at all times. And what you have developed through the process of evolution, what humans have developed, is something, a relationship called commensalism. And in commensalism, both parties are actually benefiting. So you're benefiting because the bacteria are helping you to digest things, or they're taking up certain nutrients and making it so that pathogenic bacteria cannot affect your body. So in commensalism, both parties are benefiting. And we're going to talk about other forms of relationships later on, but that's one to know for chapter 13. And also you should know that Not all bacteria are bad. Certainly some can be very, very harmful. They can be pathogenic. But again, there are a lot of bacteria living on you and in you at all times. We also get a lot of things from prokaryotes that you might not expect. So cheese, other than just the most basic mozzarella, comes from a fermentation process using bacteria. So does salami, okay? So actually what they're going to do is they're going to grind up that meat and they're going to hang it in rooms where bacteria can grow very, very easily, and the whole entire outer layer is going to be covered in those bacteria, and it's a big part of what's going to give it its flavor. Yogurt is a result of bacteria. Fish sauce is a result of bacteria. Coffee is fermented using prokaryotic fermentation processes. So as negative of a thing as prokaryotes can be, they can also be hugely helpful in helping us to preserve our food and make our food tastier.